Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for being here. As Wesley just said, I am the intern on the project titled Communicative Drones in VR. I need to click on. So technology, machines, and robots, they're clearly everywhere around us, and we experience them most days. And we communicate with them. I mean, right now, my clicker is communicating with a computer, which is going to communicate with a screen. And I'm sure many of you, let's get a raise of hands, how many of you have said the phrase, "Okay, Google," at least once in your life? Me too. I have both a Google Nest and a Google Hub inside my house. So "Okay, Google" is a very common phrase in my house, and even last night when I was practicing this speech, they both responded to me asking that specific question. But maybe you prefer your robots to be more useful, to do something for you. Like my little minion there in the middle, my EcoVac robot, which cleans for me even when I'm not home. And it talks to me. You know, when it gets stuck, it says, "Okay, driver wheel issue, please help." Or "Can't find home, please guide back to home." But they might seem intelligent. But these robots are not the type of intelligence we are considering or communication considering when it comes to drones. So the main aims of my project was to create a VR model of a drone which we can interact with inside of this reality. And we wanted to make it teleoperated so that a person could be this drone and could control it in a very intellectual way as which a drone would be. And then finally, we wanted it to be networked so that a person could experience the drone with this human level interaction. So most of the time when I've been talking about drones, let me set the scene for you first, sorry. So the scene is the Culture series by Iain M. and it is set in a science fiction interstellar world where there is aliens and humanoids and very smart AI ranging from below human level to hyper-intelligent minds, which are very interesting. But most of the time when I've been talking about drones, you've probably been thinking these type of drones. But these are not the drones we are looking for. The drones we are looking for are much more interesting. They have their own personality, and these creatures are so intellectual in a similar way to how humans are, in the fact that they have emotions. These droids use force fields to float instead of having limbs or wheels, and they're made up of robotic and organic parts. These drones also range very much in size and design, as you can see by the fan art I have on the screen here. They range from being small enough to fit in the palm of your hand to being 1 meter across. But the main thing that this project focuses on is their form of communication and the fact that they use a color-changing aura to communicate these emotions. So as you can see in the middle, humans already connect emotions to colors. We already have a set spectrum which we take as being normal. And the drone challenges this spectrum. And that'll be very interesting to see how humans find these differences. You might be wondering, why do I have little monsters on the far side of my screen? And they are actually the newest addition to the Microsoft Teams Reflect. And they are aimed to increase the emotional vocabulary of students. And I found them very fascinating for this project in the way that they also have one base color for one specific class of emotion. So like if you were happy or excited, you might be the little blue one, or if you were scared, you'd be the little red one. And then finally, the Insight Heart on this side of the screen is a program that is set up very similarly to how I wanted to set up the drone, because it allows a teacher and a student to interact with this networked product. And it was already set up into an augmented and virtual reality world. And so I was basically going to do that, just with a drone instead of a heart. So how did I get to this point? The process started with learning the programs. As said before, I'm an engineering student, so I did not have much background in working with Unity or Blender for that case, and I'd only tattled with it a little bit. So I learned the programs after many, many YouTube videos and completing many, many tutorials. Then I had to create my basic model. And as you'll see in the next slide, it was very basic. It was a sphere that I'd made a little bit spiky and put a donut shape as the eyes. Then I was lucky enough to get a network framework from Wesley. Even though I had tried to do the networking myself, I could not get the networking to work. So I was lucky enough to use that, and then I could just drop my model in, and that was very helpful. Then it came to creating the VFX graph for my aura. So as you can see on the far side, my first draft of the drone was very basic. It was a sphere that had a bigger outer sphere, which was the emotion. And I was going to use that and just change the shape a little bit and keep it translucent, but I was not happy with the way that this was looking. And so I ended up going for a different approach and using the VFX graph to create this aura you see on the side. And I was drawn to it mainly because it was a lot more descriptive. And I could use it a lot more in different ways. Like I could change the turbulence of the side and the way that the particles move to allow it to seem more calm or to seem more upset. I could also change the color and the brightness and the way that it glowed. Cool. Then I went into making my animations. And so my animations were very basic, and I simply just dragged and dropped the drone using the animated view on how I wanted it to appear and how I wanted it to bounce when it was happy, or to shake its head when it was unhappy, or to twist and turn when it was displeased. So that was fun. And then I gained some informal feedback by sending this video to a bunch of my friends and getting them to just attach one thing to the other side. So what color matched what emotion? And this feedback was very useful, as it actually led to me changing a few of my animations. I swapped the white and the pink, as the pink was described as being a lot more angry almost. Yes, the pink was a lot more angry while the white was seen as being more busy. And so I just swapped those two to allow them to be more accurate to how people receive them. And this was a color change that still fit within the color descriptions found inside the book. Cool. And then I had to finish off my network syncing. So at this point, the drone was inside the virtual reality, and two characters could be inside of this virtual reality. But if I pressed a button to change the drone, to make it blue instead of pink, then the other player didn't see that. And so that was a big issue because that defeated the whole point of it being networked. The whole purpose was so that those color changes would be displayed across the screen. And so I ended up making a simple remote procedural call file, like a script, that just called the animations for any other networked players. So if one person pressed the button, then the button got pressed for everyone. And then for final graphics, I added a background which we actually decided to be the hive to make it a familiar environment with this unfamiliar drone within it. And then we also made an invisible avatar. So for the purpose why we did that is because we wanted the drone to be the drone, and the person controlling the drone had to almost seem like it was the drone. And so by having it invisible, the player sees this drone and hears this drone, but she doesn't see the person. And so we found that would be a vital part to it for if you're trying to experience something that's non-humanoid. So here's my results. Oh, it's going to play. There you go. So as you can see on the sides, we've got all the different emotions that we've implemented, and the surprise and the color. So that was good. And this also actually demonstrates the fact that the teleoperations and the networking is working, as I was simply looking at the drone recording this video while my sister was pressing all the buttons and operating it. So that was very cool to see it working. But one thing that we didn't get to was actually the audio. So in research considering robots and virtual reality and human interaction with them, it's often been said that audio is the key aspect of that. And so there is verbal communication, like I can speak through it, but I haven't edited it, so I don't have any voice distortion at this point, but it would be very useful to add a voice distortion so that the droid's voice isn't humanoid. It isn't humanistic in any sort of way, and there's no like tone description, so that the color aura is the only way of knowing the actual emotion that this droid is trying to depict. Furthermore, I think it'd be very useful to create more than one drone. so that a person can see these drones interacting with each other in this virtual reality. And then it'd be interesting to see if a person sees them as they would animals interacting with each other, or if they see them as also the same level of intelligence as, because they are. Like, these drones are the same level of intelligence as we are. Thank you very much for listening. I would like to thank my supervisors, Dr. Eleanor Sandry and Gwyneth Peaty, for all their support and their knowledge around the books and the drones throughout this process. And I wanted to thank Carley, Tillett and Wesley Lamont for their technical support throughout all my issues. Thank you very much.